AM, hora de Chile. Comenzamos esta segunda jornada del taller regional sobre la encuesta de maquinaria y equipo para la recolección del ciclo 2021 para América Latina y el Caribe. Ayer tuvimos una muy buena jornada con presentaciones tanto del Banco Mundial, donde nos dieron los lineamientos generales de la encuesta, con Peter Tabor, nuestro consultor experto en este tema, y también con, digamos, las lecciones aprendidas y, y el estado de situación de la encuesta en el ciclo 2017 en nuestros países. Hoy día vamos a seguir en esta misma línea, en la revisión de las especificaciones de los ítems a cargo de Peter, que con su experiencia nos muestra, digamos, destaca aquellos aspectos que hay que revisar a la hora de hacer esta recolección. Pero antes, bueno, antes algunos anuncios de carácter general. Ahí en el chat les pusimos el tema de la interpretación. Contamos con interpretación español-inglés. En esta plataforma Zoom, ustedes la pueden seleccionar en el botón de interpretación que está en su pantalla abajo, más tirado hacia la derecha, y también todas las presentaciones ya se encuentran disponibles en el sitio que hemos creado en la CEPAL para esta reunión. Así es que pueden seguir también bajando, descargando las presentaciones que tenemos disponibles para ustedes. Y también, antes de comenzar esta revisión exhaustiva que nos dará Peter, Rui Costa nos dará algunos lineamientos sobre la discusión que tuvimos ayer en términos de qué es lo que tenemos que levantar, cuáles son los ítems y productos que se tienen que recolectar en esta encuesta. Y le daría la palabra a Rui, quien se referirá a este tema. Muchas gracias, Rui.
Thank you, Claudia, and good morning, everyone. So as you remember, yesterday, there was a question regarding the import of machinery and equipment goods and how is it treated. So the first thing to notice is whether or not an item is relevant in the country. Is it used in the country? Is it representative? And for that, you may need to consult your national accounts experts, local industry experts, or even the customs authority. So is there any registry of imports of these goods or not? So we need first to make sure that the item that is being priced is actually used in the country. So if on a second step, if the item is used, if it's relevant, then we should identify any local distributors of this type of equipment. Sometimes these brands work with local representatives that distribute their goods. And, sorry, there is someone at the microphone.
Disculpen, hay un micrófono abierto. ¿Podrían apagar sus micrófonos para poder escuchar lo que Rui nos está comentando? Gracias.
Thank you. So as I was saying, there are sometimes local distributors for this type of specialized equipment, and it will be better to contact those distributors because they will have knowledge of the specifications and all the logistics necessary to bring the goods to the country and deliver it to the purchaser. On the last point, so if it is a direct import, if you can't find it locally, but you know that this item is actually being used in the country, but there is no local or national supplier, then you may contact the manufacturer directly. These manufacturers may redirect you to a regional distributor, and from there you you may find the price. However, you must consider in this price, you must consider if there are any import tariffs that exist in your country, such as import duties. Those taxes paid at the port have to be registered as product taxes. You have to verify if these taxes are deductible or not, because also, same as the VAT, the value added tax. So the value added tax is sometimes deductible from equipment goods, and that's why it's excluded. If you read the survey instructions, you'll find information about the VAT tax. And so the treatment of import duties is the same. Import duties should be added to the price. Sorry, there is some noise again. Can you please turn off your mics? Okay, thank you. So one thing is to consider in imports is the import duties, if they exist, and register them as product taxes. The other thing is transportation costs. So the transportation costs may also be present, transporting the costs from the country of origin to your country, and those will be registered as transport costs. And if this is the case, then you should write on the observation field a note that this product was obtained directly from the manufacturer, and we've considered import duties and transport costs. So if you can give us more information in the observations, that is also very welcome. But yeah, short answer is that the import prices are allowed, provided that you ensure that these are actually items that are used in the country. And then you need to be careful with these import duties and transport costs to make sure that they are all considered in the price. Lastly, two things to consider. All prices need to be reported in national currency. So of course, that if you are importing a product from another country, it might be in US dollars or in a different currency. So prices need to be converted to national currency. And secondly, we are only pricing new items. So sometimes also distributors might, or even the industry commonly uses second-hand items, refurbished items, but these are not comparable. So you must also ensure that all items priced are indeed new items. Okay, and I hope this clarifies the question from yesterday, and thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias, Rui. Efectivamente, tus comentarios aclaran y precisan, digamos, qué es lo que se persigue en esta recolección, y esperamos que a los países les haya ayudado para poder levantar esta encuesta. Ahora, antes de darle la palabra a Peter, quisiera señalarles que a las 11, alrededor de las 11, haremos un break pequeño de 10 minutos para digamos, cortar un poquito la jornada y hacer un mini descanso. Así es que ahora, sin más detalles, le doy
Claudia,
la palabra.
Sorry.
¿Mm?
Claudia, can I add one extra comment that I think could be helpful before we start?
Adelante, William.
See, just thank you, Rui. You know, everything you said is on point, true. Just one extra thing to add that based on past experience is everything Rui mentioned about how you treat the import prices if they are to be used for purposes of the ICP machinery and equipment survey, in a way or to a large extent also applies if you start using prices from the producer price index in your country. The price concept used in the PPI is not the same as the price concept required for purposes of the machinery and equipment survey, which requires, as we know, the asset to be transported and ready to be used at the moment. So you have to add the installation costs, transportation costs, and any discounts, and the whole sort of realm of things that Peter and Rui have been mentioning so far. So I think, to drive the point even further, always be careful of what price concept you're using, And perhaps a practical recommendation is, branch out, talk to the people in your country that are dealing with the import statistics, talk to the people that are dealing with the national account side of machinery and equipment, and talk to the people as well working on the producer price index. And precisely because of this, in a way, extra work is why I mentioned at the very beginning that the survey, even though superficially it seems easy, just price a bunch of machinery equipment products, it does require some extra steps to actually collect these prices and then arrive at the required price concept that is needed for this, which ultimately, as we remember, is to be able to deflate each country's machinery and equipment expenditures in local currency. Yeah, so just an additional sort of recommendation or suggestion building on what Rui had mentioned earlier.
Muchas gracias, William, por haber hecho esta precisión y también, digamos, en base a la experiencia del ciclo 2017. Ahora damos la palabra a Peter y antes de darle la palabra a Peter, si estás de acuerdo, Peter, será que hagamos las preguntas o las preguntas que tengan los participantes durante tu presentación para parar ahí en aquellos productos que puedan resultar con alguna consulta. Si estás de acuerdo, hacemos las preguntas durante tu presentación.
Yes, that's fine with me, just because I will probably not notice the changes in the chat window. Would somebody please then give me a short interrupt vocally that I can notice that there is something written that I should probably read or refer to? And especially if it is written in Spanish, we need the translation for me then.
Sí, sí, no hay problema con eso, Peter. Entonces, sin más, los dejo con Peter Tabor, nuestro experto en maquinaria y equipo. Adelante, Peter.
Okay, thank you. I'll just adjust my screen properly. Okay, you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so yesterday we finished basic heading fabricated metal products. So today, as I promised, is a bit more fun basic heading electrical and optical equipment. I think this equipment may look a bit more familiar to you than the equipment did that we had yesterday. As you see over here, we have photocopiers, we have computers. There is some noise in the background. Could somebody please mute their speaker or their microphone? Sorry. Okay. You have printers, you have blood pressure monitors, cameras, monitors, oscilloscopes, engines, and all the like. So we will have quite a lot of different stuff over here, but I hope some of this looks familiar to you. Okay, first item would be the color photocopier. As a branded item, we picked a Japanese product, the Canon Image Runner Advance C5550i, third generation of that one. That's 3 in the third row over here. There was a earlier version of this one in a previous survey, and now we have this. And of course, the counterpart unspecified model. And this is one of the examples where an image needs some modification or explanation. Over here, most of the images that you find for this image runner, we looked hard for a different one. They show this image runner with this bottom tray for paper storage. And in fact, it's a cassette, and this cassette costs extra, as does this pedestal, but we are looking for the most simple machine, which is the one, this top part of the machine. and then the pedestal added to it so that it can be standing on it and protect the bottom part of this one. This is, sorry, this is standard office equipment. It is a multifunctional model. It can print, copy, scan, send the scanned documents to anybody in the email address book of this machine, store, and optionally also have a fax functionality. As I said before, we are looking for the item with the pedestal named Q2. I don't know what the Q2 stands for, but that's the name of the pedestal shown below instead of the cassette feeding unit on the left. Okay, so important parameters, as I said, always for the branded items, it's always the exact model that we are looking for. Then what is important, of course, for a copier is the maximum size of paper it can accommodate, which is in this case A3. The copy sizes that can be done as a standard are A6 to A3. It has a functionality for enlarging or reducing the size of the screen, of the scan, sorry, and of the prints, which is between 25% and 400%, so divided by 4 or multiplied by 4. And the copy speed is something which is pretty much giving you an estimate how quick this machine works. The standard ones that you probably have at home are like 20 pages per minute for a laser printer, or 25, and this one is a bit faster. That's 50 pages per minute. ppm is for page per minute. For some printers, a quality sign is how quickly they can operate when you first power them up and have them ready. This one can do a first copy for a color page in after 5.2 seconds around. I don't know who measured the 0.2, but around 5 seconds would be fine. You can do from 1 to 999 copies of a page. And then, of course, for faxing and scanning and copying, the resolution is important, and the amount of paper this machine can accommodate. So we have 2 550 sheet paper cassettes and 1 multi-purpose tray for 100 sheets. And as I said before, the machine is to include a pedestal cabinet for the machine to be at the correct working height. Fun fact for this is we have exactly this machine in our office, so I know this quite well. It is quite heavy, as you can see, 142 kilograms, so that's nothing you would have at home. So standard office equipment. And I think there are notes on this item too. Okay, this is the enhanced version of the C55i. We are looking for this machine with the plain pedestal Q2. And one thing which is important about such machines is to indicate whether the price that you are reporting perhaps already includes installation and or training cost. That is offered by many companies, and sometimes they don't give you separate numbers for the training cost and for the installation cost and just say it's included in the price. So if this is the case, please make a note of that, because otherwise we will probably ask you for the installation cost of this. So make a note of that one. So that would close this item for the moment, if there are any questions. Otherwise, I just continue.
No hay preguntas.
Okay. Next item are scanner scales. Scanner scales are mostly used in supermarkets or shops like that. We are looking for a machine from Zebra Solutions. People may know them under a different name. It was Motorola for quite a while, but that has been bought by Zebra. In this case, that's one of the items where the order size may have a significant impact on the price. In the European comparison program, the suggested order size for this was 10, because if you're thinking of a supermarket, they won't just buy one of these scanner scales. So that's not a typical order. 10 would be much more typical than that. But as I already said before, please remember to divide delivery costs and the other costs by this order size, because otherwise you would report much too high delivery cost or installation cost or something else. Okay. Now we have a look at this item. So this is a model Zebra Solutions MP7000. It's a medium size. There are different sizes of this. And the type of glass that's covering this over here, this is important too. And this is the version we are looking for with a sapphire glass. As I get it, this is a little bit more sturdy and more resistance against scratches than other types of glass. So that is a little bit more expensive than other types of glass. So please use this. And that's one of the cases where it's important to note that some of the notes give product numbers. In this case, the product number or manufacturer ID, as some of them call that, is MP7000-MNS0M00WW. If you key that into a search engine, you may immediately be directed to somebody who sells that. So that in many cases helps. And this is also one of the items where the extra information that I gave in the previous session is important. This is an item which is way more expensive than the old Motorola version LS7808 that was priced in ICP 2017. The expected factor that we would see normally is something between 2 and 3. So significantly more important. If you have the same price, probably the person who provided the price just gave you a price for the old and wrong model in this case. Specs for this one. I won't mention the model names again on this one. So the model name and model denomination is always important. And from now on, we are looking for an in-counter scanner scale. This is important. This is a scanner scale which can also weigh the items of what you put on it. So there's another version of that one which can only scan. It doesn't weigh the items, and that's cheaper. So don't report that one. It has 2 different types of connections, USB port and serial port RS232. And the other parameters for this item are not so important. It's an in-counter scale, and so we would look for a similar model. Dimensions, this gives you roughly an impression how big this item is and the weight that it has. And again, because that's important, we are looking for this manufacturer ID. If there are, well, I won't ask for questions anymore for the item, so I just make a brief break after each item, and if then there's no reaction by Claudia, I assume that there are no questions. Is that fine, Claudia?
Me parece perfecto, Peter, porque hasta ahora apenas aparezca una
Okay.
pregunta en algún ítem, te voy a interrumpir. Aquí hay uno, aquí
Okay.
justo aparece una pregunta y está en inglés. What are the main features necessary in order to price this item?
So first of all, it needs to be an in-counter scale, and it needs to be a scanner scale. It needs to have external connections in order to make this connectable to your system for your supermarket. And then, well, these are basically the parameters that we have over there. And then, of course, there's a lot of different additional parameters for this one. But for this item, you would normally see everything is covered as soon as it is the model MP7000 with sapphire glass. I'm afraid if you want to have the exact specifications, for instance, of the, let's say the light source or something like that, you would have to refer to the PDF document for the branded item to get that. Because there are so many parameters for this, which are all specific to this item, and these are not all mentioned in here. This is just not available in this SPD, so we don't have all the parameters. Does that answer the question?
Carly dice que respondiste la pregunta, Peter. Pero tenemos otra pregunta de Jerry Aska.
Yeah.
Dice, dependent on the size and weight of the item, would is there a preference between air and sea freight?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know what your importer of such equipment prefers. I would typically think that this would be something that would be transported in bigger quantities. If I remember correctly, shops that I saw over here have quantities on stock like 100, 200 of these. So it's quite common. And so I would think that normally comes in a container, so sea freight. But if you're on a small island, you won't probably get it by sea freight. It would probably, if it is just an order of 10, they might put it in a plane. I don't know. But for typical countries, sea, I would say. Okay.
Sí. Peter, sobre este tema, en el fondo, si es que es lo que más se usa en el país, y si, por ejemplo, Jerry, que vive en una isla en el Caribe, probablemente lo que más se usa ahí es flete aéreo. Entonces, ahí tienen que cotizar de acuerdo a lo más frecuente para su país, ¿no es cierto?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So it wouldn't make sense to ask for a big container ship to go to a small island if they don't have big container ships going there. So the typical situation would be what you would apply. Okay, next item. Now we come to computers. This is one of the rare cases where we have only one unspecified item and 3 branded items, but I think the fact that we have 3 big companies, HP, Dell, and Apple, in the selection of the branded items will help many people to have that. All desktop computers should be with installed operating system without a monitor. The most important specifications are CPU type and speed, the amount of memory installed, and the type and the size of the installed hard drive. Type in this case would refer to whether it's a solid state disk, a RAM disk, or a real hard disk. If the duration and the type of the warranty is given in the specs, they may be important too. I will give you also an example for the differences that can occur there with respect to some of the features that we have over here. So remember, we want to have exactly what we are prescribing in the specs. If anything is different, this is, for this item, extremely important to know. The reason for this is if there is a deviation in the processor speed and in the hard disk size or in the warranty, we may be able to give you an educated guess of how much this difference is reflected in the price and what the price difference would be between this and the exact item that we are looking for. So that might help, and for this reason, this is extremely important to report the prices, to report the specs of exactly what you priced. And I think I haven't yet noticed or mentioned the parameters for the unspecified item are those of the Hewlett-Packard workstation. Okay, now first computer, that's a Hewlett-Packard Z2 Tower, as you can see, generation 5 workstation. And for some of the items, even the item name already contains the product number, which in this case is 259K6EA. This may be extended by an additional code giving some information, what country you are in. For instance, over here, I can only guess, in Germany, we found this with a hash mark and then the letters ABD. And for the UK, we found it with hash mark and ABU. So I would rather guess that the D stands for Deutschland, which is Germany in English, and U for United Kingdom, but that's just my guess. So if there's something extra, that's fine, but these letters, these need to be exactly what we are having here. As I said before, this item is the counterpart branded item for the unspecified item with number 050. Okay, now the parameters. As I said before, we want to have an operating system. In many cases for the computers, the operating system is Windows 10 Home. If you find them in a consumer shop, please make sure to price the operating system Windows 10 Pro 64-bit included. Then we have the processor type. Typically, they may give you processors i5, i7, i9. In this case, we are looking for an Intel Core i7, 10,700. It has 8 cores and 12 megabyte of cache. Processor speed is between 3.8 and 5.1 gigahertz. We have 4 memory slots and we have a RAM memory installed of 16 gigabyte. In addition, we have a drive capacity of 512 gigabyte solid state disk. It's form factor a tower, so not a desktop system, but a tower system. And for this one, we include the Hewlett-Packard USB keyboard and mouse. Of course, if you are pricing something at the unspecified item position for that one, it doesn't make any sense to ask for Hewlett-Packard USB keyboard and mouse. So in this case, the unspecified item would just have to have a keyboard and a mouse included. We are looking for the system without a monitor, and we are looking for a system with 3 years warranty. Typical weight of this machine is 7.0 kilogram, and you find it on the Hewlett-Packard website. As I said before, the order code 259K6EA may help to find the item. In the next slide, I show you how we got the response we got on a German website looking for the order code. This is a website idealo.de. I look for that on that website for almost all types of computer equipment and things like that. So please notice if you are using price comparison pages, they have some tolerance in what they think is relevant if you key in an order code. So if you key in an order code and you get a response, make sure that what you are actually getting is something which reflects this order code. Like in this case over here, we have this tower with an order code which is exactly matching what we want to have. And on this side, you have a different one. It's K3EA. And you notice the price difference, which is between 1,300 euros and 1,600 euros. So that's quite relevant. That's 270 something euros, which is quite a big portion of the price. So please, if you use comparison pages, make sure that you get the correct response and that the item you actually get is really what you want. Something I already mentioned too was what do you use as a source for a price? Which websites can you use in order to get a price for an item? First of all, the response I get from this price search, sorry for everything over here being in German, but that's a German website. I have different prices. You can see they range from 1,333 euros to 1,500 euros. We have different shops given here. There's one I wouldn't use for pricing computer items, eBay, but this one is well known. This one is well known. Völkner is well known. Cyberport is one where we buy our computers. ProShop, we have already bought computers over there too. So generally, you say, I can take prices from which web pages which are well known, which are reliable, and which professionals actually use to price their items. So typically, if you have large quantities of items there, a short delivery time, a price which is in a certain range, as you can see over here, I would see that as a okay source, a reliable source. If anything on this says it will only be available in 3 months or so, you would not use that for pricing a computer. That is, in this case, for the lowest price, we have an availability which is not clearly stated. So you could either confirm this via a phone call, is it actually available, and ask whether this price is realistic now, or you can just do without this price and take average of other prices. So in this case, I would probably use the formula that is given down here. I take a couple of prices, take the average, and then as this is a price which includes VAT, I have to deduct VAT, which in Germany is 19%, so it has to be divided by 1.19. Probably something which is not necessary in your part of the world. In ours, I always tell people, yes, if you want to deduct VAT, please do not deduct 19%, but divide by 1.19. That is something different. So that's probably known to everybody of you, but I always say that because in our European comparison program, we have this error every time somebody calculates VAT in a wrong way. So don't take that as something which cannot happen. It will. Okay, that would be the next computer. I would suggest to cover all computers on this group, and then go to the questions for all of them, if that's okay. This is now a Dell model. It's a Dell Optiplex 7080. It is a smaller one, though it looks almost the same on the screen. It's much smaller than the other one. The form factor is called micro form factor, whereas the Hewlett-Packard was a tower. It's much smaller and less heavy. It has a slower processor and a smaller solid state disk. That's the reason why the Dell is also expected to be cheaper than the Hewlett-Packard computer. In the current results we have for European comparison 2021, the difference was about 25%. Yeah, that is something you will probably notice, that in some of the specification slides, you will find a line in purple like this one. The reason for this is that there is an error in the data collection form for this item. This one is the correct CPU denomination, and this one is there by mistake. So that is something you should observe. If there's a difference, please refer to the survey catalog too. In some cases, the service catalog is correct and the data collection form has a different one. As far as I have seen that, this mostly happens in the metric column. In the imperial column, the errors seem to be almost not existent. So as I said before, the processor type is important. It's an i7 again. We have a processor speed of 2 gigahertz, slightly slower than the Hewlett-Packard. We have the same amount of memory. We have a smaller solid state disk, different form factor, and the keyboard and mouse combination is Dell Wireless KM636. No more monitor, and warranty of 3 years. And as I've mentioned before, this one is way lighter than the Hewlett-Packard. When you go to the PDF document for this item, you will probably notice that for some of the items, we even have made printouts from web pages to illustrate how you can get the information there. In many of the Dell prices, there is quite a significant saving. You might report that separately, or you might report the bottom line price. I would not say that this is a discount. It's just a different price. So that is important to note, that there are quite high differences. And on some of the websites, you can select whether you want to have the prices excluding VAT or including VAT. Over here, it states it's excluding VAT. And down below there, you will have additional parameters for this item and the complete technical specs for that one. So checking the item related PDF document is highly recommended for the computer items too. Last of the branded computers that we have is the Apple Mac Pro. This has more RAM than the other computers, bigger hard drive, and is way more expensive than the Hewlett-Packard and the Dell. There is another important thing to note. This Mac Pro is now way more sophisticated and expensive than the Mac Pro priced in ICP 2017. This one is more like a video editing server or something like that than the machine we had in the ICP 2017. The expected price factor is between 2 and 3. You might also note this item will be reported in many cases not to be on stock, but built to order. This is okay. That for computers, that is something like that also can mean it is configured at the moment when you say, I want it with this amount of RAM and this amount of hard drive. So that is okay if it says built to order in such a case. Specs for this item. We have operating system Mac OS in this case, not Windows. We have an 8-core Intel Xeon, 3.5 gigahertz. We have double the size of the RAM that we had before, and we have a big solid state disk, 1 terabyte. It's a tower again, and we have this item with what the Apple calls Magic Keyboard with mouse. No monitor, and over here, 1-year warranty. That is typically what is offered in Europe. When we discussed this item with the people from the statistical office offices in the ADB region, we had to notice that for some of the countries, a longer warranty period is prescribed, like 3 years. So then you would have to go to, if that's the case for your country, you would have to have an additional information how much this would cost, indicate that there's a 3-year warranty, for instance, for this one only, and the extra amount of money that costs. The item related PDF document in that case shows a quotation that we obtained from the Apple online store for Ireland. Okay, now we have the laptop computer, so we could make a short break to answer any questions on this group of items.
So far, we don't have any question in the chat.
As I said, people know computers. Okay, so next group of computers, laptops. So we have, again, one unspecified. Then we have a Dell, an IBM Lenovo, and an Apple MacBook Pro. The Dell Latitude E5510 is a basic business laptop. It has a 15.6-inch display, full high definition display, and it is with a surface which is anti-glare, so it doesn't show your mirrored image. It has 16 gigabyte of RAM and 256 gigabyte solid state disk. Parameters over here, we have Intel Core i7 10610U CPU, processor speed 1.8 gigahertz, 16 gigabyte of RAM, 256 gigabyte solid state disk, 1-year warranty. The screen resolution, and the batteries over here. I don't know the reason why this is given twice. We only need that with one of these 4-cell batteries. So don't take into account the second specification that you have down here again with battery again. So if you see anything in purple, it's either in excess or not needed. That would be what I would want to say about the latitude. Now we have the IBM Lenovo ThinkPad T15P first generation. It has a faster processor, a bigger solid state disk. It has ultra high definition instead of full high definition, and it has a longer warranty. And all of this contributes to a higher price than we expect for the Dell. We have an i7 processor over here, RAM, the SSD, 3 years warranty, as I said. It's an anti-glare screen again, 15.6-inch size. It's not a touch screen, so that is important. And we have a display resolution of ultra high definition. IPS, this is a denomination for a different system of displays. It's in-plane switching. This is just an additional information. You just need to have ultra high definition over here, and the resolution is given here. In supporting material, I will also provide an translation between resolution abbreviations and actual resolutions, because with some of the equipment you just will find ultra high definition, and it probably won't give you this information, how much pixel you actually have over there. Again, battery is given twice, but we only need one of these cells. Third laptop is the Apple MacBook Pro with Retina display and touch bar. The touch bar is, for those who don't know that, is that over here. That can be used for maneuvering and other things with the screen and with command bars and things like that. We have the Retina display instead of with a resolution of 3000 by 1920 instead of full HD or Ultra HD. We have a bigger hard drive, and we have an i9 processor instead of i7. The Apple MacBook Pro is thus expected to be most expensive of the 3 branded laptops, and the Dell should be the cheapest if you price all 3 of them. This is something I should probably make a comment on that one, which we typically test if we have countries pricing a group of items or more than one item in a group of items. We normally know what the price relation between these would be. So if anything deviates very much from this standard price difference between the items, we would then suggest to check these prices again. So you would be pointed to any prices violating our standard expectation for the relation between them. Okay, for the processor, we had Intel Core i9. I know for current Apple ads, there's also a processor named M1. If you find that only, you might report that too, and just make sure to fill in the correct specs. So you would then specify processor M1 over here. Processor speed is 2.4 gigahertz. Typically, you can select among various processor speeds on the Apple websites. Make sure to select the correct ones. The standard configuration given may not be what we are looking here, so sometimes you would have to make a selection different from the standard selection on the web page. Drive capacity is 1 terabyte again. We have 16 gigabyte of RAM, a warranty of 1 year, which can be extended with what I think is called Apple's service pack or something. We will have that information later. And we have the display, as I mentioned, IPS 3072 by 1920. And again, battery is given twice. Okay, so some examples for price differences because of different CPU or different warranty or something like that. If we are looking for a basic 1-year Dell on-site warranty and you only find a price with 3-year basic on-site warranty, the typical difference between these two is about $70 US. The same if you want to check the difference between a Dell 1-year basic on-site warranty and a 3-year Pro Plus warranty. That is something Dell offers too. The difference is about $200. Apple MacBook, if you want to have 3-year warranty, or if it is given with 3-year warranty, that is accounting for a difference of around about $200. And if you have an M1 processor for the Apple MacBook Pro and a 3-year warranty extension, then that is about $280 US. The processor itself, the difference is like $80 US if you have the Apple M1 instead of the Intel i9. So that would be one of the ways where we would be able to probably make prices comparable. But that is, I think, a special case for the computers because you won't probably find right now exactly the same processor configuration that we had when the items were originally designed. Remember, the work that World Bank started on this item list was done with an item list around about, I think, March of 2021. And of course, some of the processes and other things on computers may have changed in between. I might mention for validation purposes, an additional source for CPU prices, which is the website arc.intel.com. On this website, you can find the different processors, the parameters for these processors, when they are introduced when they were introduced into the market, and the typical price for these processors. So, for instance, for the Intel i9 9880H, typical price is $556 US, and the i7 10700K is between $374 and $384 US. So you would be able to calculate differences between various processors. That might help during validation or when you want to check whether this is basically the same processor. Because that might be a bit complicated. Are there any questions on that?
Not for the moment, we don't have any question.
Okay. So, oops, next one. Laser printers. Nowadays, laser printers and photocopiers, this is something that seems to be a little bit intermingling, but we still have some of the smaller laser printers in our sample. 2 unspecified ones, one for each of the different branded models, a Hewlett-Packard and a Canon. The Hewlett-Packard is a LaserJet Pro MFP M479FDW. For Hewlett-Packard systems, it's always nice that they have quite unique numbers. In this case, oops, sorry. In this case, the number is W1A80A. If you look for that, you are probably getting this machine. The only thing you would have to make sure if you are looking for that, the system that you are, the search machine that you are using might assume that you would probably also want to know prices for similar printers. Similar in this case would be different variants of the printer, like the DW, which is without the fax, because the F over here stands for fax, and the FNW, which does not have automatic 2-sided printing. So we do not want the prices for these variants. So please make sure when you're looking for this, that you are actually getting this machine with these 3 letters. Okay, so we are looking for a machine which has a resolution of 600 dots per inch, 600 by 600. Printing capacity, both for color and for black and white, is up to 27 pages per minute. Paper storage, paper handling, you have one tray with place for 250 sheets, and you have an additional multifunction feeding part where you can put 50 sheets maximum. The memory is 512 megabyte as a standard. You might find different options, but we want to have this one with 512 megabyte. This machine weighs a bit above 20 kilogram, and you will probably find it on the Hewlett Packard website. In this case, there's another trap you can fall into, and you would probably easily spot that. If you're looking again on the Idealo website in Germany for this machine, you will get the machine, which is fine, but you will also get prices for accessories for the machine, because what they have over here, it is for the LaserJet Pro. It's for it, but it's just the toner cartridge. And that is the reason why it is so cheap in this case. Like 91 euros instead of the price for the unit, which is 541 euros and something. Okay, so even if you are directly directed to a website, please check whether you are actually getting the price for the correct unit, not for accessories. Second branded printer would be the Canon iSensus MF744 CDW. For Canon, the product codes are a little bit longer, but nevertheless, they work to go to the correct model. Price for the Canon printer is expected to be quite close to the price for the Hewlett Packard. So they are basically two different brands, but similar expensive prices. And as you can see, the parameters are quite close to each other. Same resolution, same printing capacity, same paper handling capacity, same memory capacity. You could have that, but over here we have 1 gigabyte instead of 512 megabyte. You have connection, LAN and USB, and the scanning speed is given for this item too, which is 27 pages per minute. Over here, you get a website because remember, most of this was taken from the European comparison program. And so we tend to provide English websites. So that would be in Europe, UK and Ireland, where you would find that. So our examples in many cases, if they are country specific, will be UK. But if you take that, typically what producers nowadays do is they detect that you are working from a different country and will offer you, well, obviously you are, for instance, surfing from Brazil. Do you want us to take you to the Brazilian webpage? Yeah, that's then fine. That's where you want to go. So you may be able to just use these websites and then find the items on your local website. Any questions on the printers? I see none. Okay, then we continue.
Peter?
Yeah.
Peter, we can move to these monitors and after this we can have our break. So we can move to these items and then we have the break.
Okay, so you want me to do the scanners or just wait? Or up to the monitors?
No, we can start with the scanners items.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, scanner, that is Fujitsu scanner this time. We had to switch to a different brand because the item we had for a couple of service, the Canon CanoScan 9000, this is no longer available. and that's the reason why we selected Fujitsu. One comment in the survey collection form, the make is by mistake given as Canon. In the survey catalog, the make is correct. So in this case, please disregard the Canon given in the data collection form. The purpose, this is a scanner for use in small offices, and it has also got some software for document management. It's important to note that this is expected to be way cheaper than the model we had in ICP 2017, and the expected factor is about 1/2, so 50%. Parameters, as I said, the make in this case is given as Canon, but the item name is correct, Fujitsu. We are looking for the ScanSnap IX1500. It's okay to be used with Windows 7, 8, or 10, and Mac OS of this version or later. It has a paper handling capacity of 50 sheets. Optical resolution is 600 dots per inch, has USB and Wi-Fi connection, and it can scan up to 8 pages per minute. Maximum paper size is A3. Yeah, I think that's what we need to know about the scanner. And so if you want to make the break now, Claudia, you can do.
Well, maybe we can finish with the monitors.
Yeah, well, for me, that's fine. So for the monitors, we have a Dell model, Hewlett-Packard model, an ISO model, and the counterpart unspecified items. For monitors, displays, beamers, and others, as I mentioned, there are sometimes only standards mentioned rather than the actual resolution. So here's a small translation table. You find others in the internet easily. So VGA, this is 640 by 480, SVGA 800 by 600, and so on. I don't read them out. Full HD that we had, that's one of the typical ones nowadays, 1920 by 1080. So whenever you need to have something like that, you will find comparison pages on the internet for this. The Dell, it's a QHD monitor. It has a 16:9 aspect ratio. This refers to the relative sizes of the edges over here. In addition to the 1-year warranty, there's a 3-year warranty for advanced exchange service. That's not available in all countries. It might be in your region. We found the information on the Dell website that it might not be available in all of the countries. So please check for that when we ask for certain warranty type. We have the resolution 2560 by 1440. We are looking for the warranty 1 year. Screen size is 23.8 inch in diagonal measure, 60 centimeters. Nobody normally reports that. We are going by the almost 24 inches. There's one thing again which is wrong in the metric specifications. Metric specification for some reason reads 42. In fact, the contrast ratio 1000:1 is correct. The brightness, this is an important parameter over here. It's 300 candela per square meter. The pixel pitch, pixel size is 0.2 millimeters roughly. And the response time for this item is 8 milliseconds in normal mode, 5 milliseconds in fast mode. Aspect ratio, as I already said, 16:9. And the video input for this, you will have a certain type of connectors. In some cases, it might have additional ones, but this one has DisplayPort 1.2 and HDMI. The Hewlett-Packard, this one has full HD instead of QHD. The brightness is a little bit lower, 250 candela per square meter compared to 300 candela per square meter. At present, the Hewlett-Packard monitor, at least as we found it and the other European countries found it, is a bit cheaper than the Dell. Parameters in this case, standard parameters offered by warranty offered by Hewlett-Packard. In this case, for the computer, for the monitor, is 3 years. We have 23-inch size. We have contrast ratio in this case, correct, 1000:1, 250 candela, slightly bigger pixel pitch. The response time is only given as a general parameter. It's like 5 milliseconds, 16:9 again. And this one has one additional type of video input, which is VGA. Last monitor is the ISO. This one has a slightly different aspect ratio. It has resolution 1920 by 1200. It has a longer warranty and a bigger or a higher brightness of 350 candela per square meter. And this is a very professional monitor and is expected to be way more expensive than the Dell and the Hewlett-Packard monitor. Its factor is expected to be about 2. Over here, ISO monitors are widely used by people who do, for instance, desktop publishing or do a lot of AutoCAD drawings or other drawings in other CAD systems. This would be a typical application. So these are not the normal office monitors. Okay, again, over here, warranty, in this case, as I said, 5 years, and all the other parameters, and most important one, candela, and the size and the resolution that you have over here. Now, this would finish the monitors. So I think that's a group of items where we could have the break, because now we are moving to a different type.
Yes. But we have 2 questions, Peter, in the chat.
Okay.
They are in Spanish, and I'm going to read them in English.
Okay.
The first is a question from Argentina regarding the exchange rate to be used to convert prices to local currency. In Argentina, we have different exchange rate. What would be more correct, to take the exchange rate taken by the importer or some standard exchange rate such as the one used by the importer?
Sorry, I understood it twice, by the importer only. So I didn't get the difference.
Excuse me, the translation was not right. Maybe the exchange rate used by the importer or the exchange rate used by the central bank.
Well, actually, it is typically, if you want to see what the end customer has to pay there, it would be what the importer charges. And I do not know, frankly, if World Bank then does the calculations with the exchange rate officially reported by the central bank of the country. I don't know that. That would have to be clarified by World Bank, what they use for the calculation comparison of prices across countries. But for me, in Europe, I would always say what the importer would charge you, because you are not charged in US dollars or whatever. You are charged in, what is it, Argentine pesos or something like that.
Maybe Rui or William can give some explanation to this issue. Maybe we can have their explanation after the break.
Yeah.
And we can move to the other question from Evelyn Chacon. Good morning, a pleasure to greet you. I have a query regarding the computer equipment. Derived that we do not have a survey to see the issues of weights. How to make the change derived that technology changes rapidly?
Okay, I'm not sure whether I understood that correctly, but if you can find, let's move to one of the monitors. Sorry, computers. We go here. Let's say Apple Mac. Yeah, that would be an example. If you, for instance, right now can't find the Apple MacBook Pro with Intel i9, but you find it with a different processor only, I would then take this processor and give the specifications. As a country, I would then report the correct specifications. So if it's the Apple M1, I would type in Apple M1. I would type in the correct processor speed that I have for this item, and then make a note that this is a different processor, and then wait for the reaction, how this could be compensated for. I think for the computers, we have to do some type of compensation there, and I would make suggestions what the compensation could be. That would be just an educated guess, but we apply this in Europe too for some of the processors. So in some cases, it may be, for instance, that you have a slightly more expensive processor, but you have a smaller hard disk. Well, fine. If that compensates for each other, we would then say, yeah, it's still okay without any change to the price. In other cases, if you only find a model with a bigger hard disk, and we know that the hard disk price difference is like $50, you would probably deduct the $50 from the price. That would be the typical solution to that, in order for countries to be able to find the models. Does that help?
Muchas gracias, Peter. Sobre el punto anterior de los tipos de cambio múltiple, tal vez reforzar en la idea que hay que usar el valor que le cobrarán al comprador. Y ese tiene que ver con el tipo de cambio que usa el importador y el distribuidor, y no tiene que ver tanto con los tipos de cambio publicados por el Banco Central, no es necesariamente igual. Entonces, la idea tendría que ser basarse en los tipos de cambio que usa el importador y el distribuidor. Esa sería un poco la respuesta a la pregunta de Argentina. Creo que con esto aquí nos están dando las gracias por la aclaración. Así es que ahora yo creo que vamos a hacer el break de 10 minutos. No sé si Paula nos vas a ayudar con el reloj o cada uno lo calcula en su reloj y nos juntamos a las 11:25 hora de Chile. Gracias, Paula. Necesitamos un buen café. Hola, esperamos que hayan alcanzado a hacerse un buen café durante el break. Y ahora continuamos, Peter, con el grupo de productos que nos anunciaste. Peter, estás en silencio.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to share my screen first and then talk. Okay, so we start a new group of items, which are the diesel generating sets. For diesel generating sets, you will find definitions either for continuous or otherwise called prime use, and it could also be for backup use. So in this case, we are talking for prices for prime use units. We have one item from Caterpillar or CAT, in the USA make, the C9, and we have Atlas Copco, another American make, QAS20, which is a more easily transportable unit. This is what this machine looks like. You see a big engine and some accessories on it. Some people may be a bit annoyed by the amount of abbreviations used there, but what the most common ones that CAT has is ACERT, which is one of the technologies they use, Advanced Combustion Emissions Reduction Technology. So everything they want to do to reduce the amount of gas exhausts. And the cooling system is ATAC, which is ATAAC, air-to-air after cooling of the exhaust. So in this case, this machine is labeled DE300E0. There's a different one, but I come to that later. You find these power generators typically at authorized local sales agent, might also be regional. In Europe, we have the situation that CAT redesigned their method of selling their units, and they have a couple of big regional distributors across Europe, but not necessarily one in every country. Maybe the same in your region of the world. Most important parameter is the capacity that one has, which is 270 kilovolt ampere. It's a three-phase system. The electric system that comes with it and operates it is 24 volt. Operating frequency is 50 hertz in this case. may in some of your countries be 60 hertz, this I know, which still can be labeled as the same item. Just reported that it is a 60 hertz unit if it is. The speed at which this is measured is 1500 rounds per minute. The generator make is code is LC5114J. It has a 9-liter engine, approximately 9-liter engine. That is why it is called C9. You have bigger ones, C13 and C18 of this, but we are looking at the 9-liter machine. It has 6 cylinders. It works with diesel, and of course, it also needs a fuel tank, and the base frame of this unit is incorporating the fuel tank. Typical weight of this machine is around about 3.5 tons, and the dimensions are given here. Dimensions you may find in the specifications of what an importer would probably report to you, that it could be different, but in many of the cases, that is just the dimensions of the complete packaging of the ready-to-ship unit. So that might be different. So don't be worried too much if the specifications only show that one, then just report what you have there. This is an extract from one of the PDF documents coming with this one, and where you can find some of the parameters over here. You have, for instance, the machine, CAT C9, and as I said, advanced combustion emission reduction technology. Probably too long to fit in this line, that's why they made this abref. It has an 8.8 liter machine, and some other parameters are given down there. The actual unit, this one is what we are looking for. It has for standby use a capacity of 300 kilovolt ampere. For prime or for continuous use, it's 275 kilovolt ampere. We are looking for the machine DE330E0. That is an emission strategy, non-certified emissions. There are other denominations like, for instance, DE330E3, emission strategy EU stage 3A. This would be something which is quite close to the other one, and there may be other C9 machines available and used in your country. Please try to find this one. If you can't find that one, please report exactly what you priced. We need the correct characteristics there and the correct model name here, this one. If you don't have that one, please specify what you have. The other one, other branded one is an Atlas Copco, as I said, QAS20. It is less powerful and can, of course, as it is lighter, be transported more easily. This is used for smaller construction sites, and it is way cheaper than the C9 that we saw before. The expected factor would be something like about 40%, so 0.4. You will probably notice much less powerful. The one we had before had close to 300 kilovolt ampere. This one has close to 20. Frequency in this case the same, speed is the same. The capacity of the engine, it's no longer 8.8 liter, but only 2.2 liters. The power of the motor, 15.8 kilowatt. It has 4 cylinders instead of the 6. It's mounted on a skid. It has diesel fuel. And as you can see, much lighter, like 800 kilogram instead of the 3.5 tons we had before. So that's Atlas Copco equipment. Well, if I see both of these typically in Germany in construction sites, so I would assume that it is also quite common in other parts of the world. I know a couple of manufacturers who specialize on exporting things like that or selling used equipment of that. Please make sure to price only new items. Do we have questions on the generators? Let's see. None so far?
No.
Okay. So we go on with 3-phase squirrel cage electric motors. Sounds funny, but this is equipment widely used. We have 2 different types, both by the producer ABB, Asia Brown Boveri from Sweden. They look very similar and their codes are very similar. As you probably noticed, you have M3BP160 MLB4, and over here it's just a couple of letters which are different, but that's important. This one is AA and MLB4 too. So it's just these 2 letters that change, BP to AA. That's how this machine looks like. This is the cage over here for the encager of this. It's a low voltage motor. It's used in industrial applications. And the big difference between the 2 is just the frame type. It's either cast iron or aluminum. In this case, the one with M3BP as a code is a cast iron frame. It has a rated output of 15 kilowatts at a speed round about 1500 rounds per minute. It has 4 poles that can be connected, and the minimum efficiency is 0.92. That is important too. And to make it easier, for reference is the international efficiency class. In this case, we are looking for the system with premium efficiency, i.e. 3. Electrical supply and other parameters are given here. And what is important for this item is you will find that probably more easily than using this number over here. You will find it using this number. So that's important to notice. So if you can't find it with this, check for this. And of course, website is important to find, probably a local seller or something like that. Just refer to the company website, and many of these offer to find a local leader or something like that. Major difference for this one, second branded one, is that it has an aluminum frame instead of the cast iron frame, but the prices of these 2 are quite similar. If you want to have a tendency, the aluminum frame is a little bit more expensive than the cast iron frame. But that, if you have different people importing the 2, you may have prices with the difference going in the other direction. The parameters of this one are almost all the same. Model code changes, the product number changes, and the frame type changes. The rest is more or less the same as with the other motor. We are again looking for international efficiency class 3 premium efficiency. Any questions on that?
No, Peter, we don't have any questions.
Okay, people are shocked. I know that, but well, that's why we try to cover everything, but we will come back to certain issues of some of the items at a later point and give some recommendations in do's and don'ts. I know it is very technical stuff. When I worked with that for the first time, like 16 years or 17 years ago, I found that rather puzzling. So I can imagine how you feel. Okay, something you may have seen more easily or more commonly would be a moving headlight. For this, Martin from Denmark is one of the leading producers. That's a moving head for dry locations, so it's used indoor. So nothing for big stage equipment for a concert going on outside. It's only for inside locations. The model is Rush MH1 Profile Plus. You have an LED engine with a lamp of 180 watts. Total power consumption would be typically around about 300 watt. The product number, which is important to find, is 90280050. Dimensions are given here, and this machine weighs roughly about 20 kilos. And you will find that on martin.dk. And I know there are many more of these items or producers available locally in some of the Asian countries. I'm not sure how the situation is in South America, in the Caribbean, whether you import that stuff either from Europe or from other countries. You would have to see. What is important to notice for all this kind of equipment is, again, please do not use equipment which is used by semi-professionals only. Use the ones that are really used, for instance, in a disco, in a stage hall, or something like that. That would be something what we are looking for. It's basically the same. It is to be for professionals. Okay, now a machine probably everybody has already seen. It's a portable generator for producing power. The branded one is a Honda machine, EC3600. That's a power generator, which is typically used if you are building a house and you do not already have power provided at your construction site. You may need something to work with some power tools, and you would typically use a machine like that. It has a small fuel tank and then uses this fuel to produce electrical energy. It comes with a, well, I would say, carrying cage around it. And there are typically other makes and models available, but this one is a Honda. Take that one. The numbers that are given behind the EC is typically refer to the power, as you will see later. Over here you see model EC3600. We have that model with 3.6 kilowatts, so 3,600 watts. It uses petrol. It is a 4-stroke engine. The output voltage is switchable between 150 and 230 volts. Then something that can tell you how long does this machine last without refueling. It's 2.4 hours. So if you have a full tank and you want to use this machine, then the typical operating hours would be like 2.5 hours. So that's what I call cage. It's a generator frame housing. Yes, that's included. And the fuel tank for that one has something like 5.3 liters. And this compares to 1.2 gallons for people more familiar with gallons. The dry weight of this machine is 58 kilo, and you find that on a webpage of Honda. Okay, any questions to the generators? Otherwise, I continue.
Questions? Yeah, we have questions, Peter.
I know. I expected something.
The question is regarding the weight of the motors. Is if the weight of the motors is adequate.
For this one or for the aluminum frame motor and for the cast iron frame motors? Or maybe for both?
Manuel Sánchez hizo esta pregunta. Tal vez quieras quitar o sea, activar el micrófono y hacerla de aluminio.
Okay. That was this one. Okay, so the question is whether the weight is required to be exactly, or what was the question?
The question is if the weight of the motor, is it adequate?
Well, you need to have, well, if this is a motor which produces this amount of power as an output, and it is to have this efficiency class and enclosure, then the weight is expected to be somewhere near here. For this model, it needs to be almost exactly. It could be only the weight with packaging or something what would cause the difference, because if it is this motor, then the empty weight is that. So if you want to find a counterpart generic item for that, you might find something, let's say from Siemens, which has a slightly higher or lower weight, but it should be close to that. But the first parameters to go for are rated output, number of poles, and efficiency class. That's the most important stuff. And of course, aluminum frame.
Muchas gracias, Peter. Understood. Thank you.
So that one was the last then. Okay, so aluminum.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we can go on. Is that correct?
Of course.
Okay. Now we come to the walkie-talkies. We have 3 branded models, all American makes, Motorola, Midland, and Kenwood. PMR, that is something you will probably find in some of the model names. That's like over here, is the abbreviation of personal mobile radio. It can be used by private persons as well as by companies without the need for registering for the use of the radio frequencies. There's normally in the countries, there's a typical radio frequency range that you can use without asking for a license. Apart from these ranges, you would normally have to get an extra license for being able to use these radio channels. So if there's something mentioned like that, please select the ones that are okay for your country. That might be changing from country to country. Okay, first, the Motorola. These walkie-talkies may be, for instance, used for communication on work sites or by people working for security companies, needing to keep contact with each other or with a headquarter and which is in the same building. In the European Comparison Program, we have in 2009 or had in 2019, the Motorola was the most expensive of the 3 walkie-talkies priced in the survey. Okay, what do we need? They typically have a rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Number of channels typically for this is 16. You have various bandwidths over here. For VAF, it's the range from 136 to 174 megahertz. And the second one is UAF, 403 to 527 megahertz. We want the system with the charger, but with no other accessories. Sometimes there's a minor accessory included with some of the walkie-talkies, which is a belt clip. That should not make too much of a price difference. If you can only find something with a belt clips, that's fine. Maximum power, of course, for something producing aerial waves is the maximum power it will have, which is 4 watts for UAF and 5 watts for VHF. You will find that on the Motorola website probably, and with some of the people selling construction equipment or other equipment, because that's an accessory some of them need to have for the construction sites. Then we have a Midland, the G9 Plus PMR 446/LPD. It's a different brand, different weight, and different power. And with the power, of course, comes the range. Midland is expected to be the cheapest of the 3 walkie-talkies. And you see the device itself and in relation the charging unit and the batteries. It has rechargeable batteries, AA size, UHF band, 2 frequencies over there. And you have a standard charger coming with it, no other accessories. And the maximum power is only 0.5 watts or 0.01 watt. So that is for the personal mobile radio. This is only a 1/10 of the power that the previous machine had, previous item had, and so the range that it can service is much smaller. Last of the 3 branded items, it's a Kenwood Tk 3000E. In the European Comparison Program 2019, the Kenwood was less expensive than the Motorola. It still was way more expensive than the Midland. And the ratio between the 3 prices was factor, the highest one with a weight of 5 would be the Motorola. Then the Midland would be 1, and the Kenwood would be round about the middle of the 2, so 2. Again, battery, this is the domination for the battery. So there are different types, so make sure to find that one. The bandwidth is given over here, 440 to 470 megahertz in UHF. We have a charger again. This one is named KSC, C for charger, 35, no other accessories. And the power output is similar to the first one we have, like 4 watts. Typically, these are not too big items. As you can see over here, the weight for this one, for instance, is only like 280 grams, including the batteries already. Any questions on the walkie-talkies?
No, we don't have new questions.
Okay, so probably one remark on walkie-talkies. In some cases, supplier would give you a price always for a pair of walkie-talkies. Please remember, we want to have the unit price, so you would need to divide that by 2 if he gives you the quote for a pair of walkie-talkies, because normally you do not buy just one. So that would be important to notice. Now, next item group, something similar to the computer screens we had before, LCD displays, with a tendency to be on the bigger side. We have LCD display by Philips, one by NEC from Japan, and one by Samsung for South Korean. Please notice again, because there have been some mistakes doing that in the last survey. If you want to price something which is similar to the Philips, please price that at the item position 400.430. If you want to price something similar to the NEC, price it at 450, and the one for the Samsung at 470. Why am I stressing that? These 3, they have different screen sizes. You may notice for the Philips, it's like 32. That's the first 2 letters. For the NEC, it's 43. And for the Samsung, it's 27. So if you now by mistake take a price for something similar to the NEC multisync and key it in at this item position, then you are basically pricing which is almost double the size than this one. And so this is expected to be much more expensive than this one. And so you would price that at the wrong item position. So please make sure if you're using unspecified item position to enter your prices at the correct one. First, Philips monitor, Philips 32BDL4051D. We found in the validation workshop for ADB a different model being priced by a couple of countries, and they asked whether this is not the same. This was the 32BDL4050D. So the only difference is this letter, or this number, sorry, this digit, the 1 and the 0 over here. Well, in fact, this model with the 0 lacks some of the features, including Wi-Fi connectivity, that the original model we are looking for has. So if you price this, please do not price it at this position, but price it at the counterpart position. So if you only find the 4050, price it at the counterpart unspecified position. The purpose for such big displays is displays for a group or for, let's say, a small working space where you have in a meeting room like 5 or 6 people sitting together and having a look at one screen. So it's not so much intended for a single user. Okay, parameters we have over here is the resolution 1920 by 1080. The monitor type is IPS, in-plane switching. The screen size is like 32 inches. The contrast ratio 1100:1. So please disregard the 46 being given in the metric column. And if you still have in mind the brightness of the monitors we had before, typically the monitors which are for a group of users, they have higher brightness than the ones for your home office or office workspace. In this case, it's like 400 candela per square meter. The pixel pitch, because the screen is a bit bigger, but the resolution is not so much bigger than with the others, the pixel pitch is bigger. Response time tends to be a little bit slower than with the smaller screens. Aspect ratio, again, is 16:9. And the connectivity is typically DisplayPort, digital video input, and HDMI for this one. If you find different measurements in some cases, and that's why I did not encircle them over here, or different weights, sometimes dimensions or weights are given with or without the monitor stand. So typically, these are the ones without the stand. And you will find that on the website philips.com or on the local version of this website. Next one is the biggest of the screens that we have over here. It's the NEC. It's the Multisync C431. It has a screen diagonal size of 33 inches instead of the 32 for the Philips. It has different technology for the screen, which is VA, vertical alignment panel, instead of IPS, in-plane switching. IPS is preferred one if you use laptops, for instance, but for some of the bigger displays, for single solutions, you would have VA, vertical alignment. This one is expected to be significantly more expensive than the Philips. Expected factor is about 1.5. So the resolution is the same. It has, as I said, different monitor type. Size is bigger. The brightness is similar. The pixel pitch, of course, as the model is bigger and the resolution is the same, is higher. So a pixel is roughly 0.5 millimeter wide. Response time is a little bit better than for the Philips monitor we had. Aspect ratio is the same. And the connectivity is comparable, but not necessarily the same. This one also has a mini sub 15-pin connector. And as you can see, it's more heavy than the one we had before. You will find DS model and similar models on the website necdisplaysolutions.com, and this may also direct you to your local website. Last one, this is a professional monitor by Samsung, but it is much smaller than the two other displays. It could also be for a single user or for a small group, and it is significantly cheaper than the Philips and the NEC monitor, and the factor is about 0.3, somewhere in that area. Model name is S27. This refers to the screen size R650F. Again, that has IPS technology, resolution as the others, smaller screen, smaller brightness because it's only for a smaller group or for a single user, smaller pixel pitch. It is quicker, has the same aspect ratio and the same connectivity. And of course, it's also the lightest of these three monitors. One thing I think that happened last time in the ICP 2017 cycle, what you should avoid in all cases would be to price something which is much bigger or smaller than what we are looking for. So if you want to price something in the unspecified counterpart position for this screen, please do not price something like 30 inches. So in this area, we want a 27-inch screen. So pricing something different than 27-inch doesn't make any sense. For the neck, it's 43. Would I mind 42 or 44? No. Would I mind 35? Yes. So the tolerance in the screen size is very small. So the reason why I'm saying that is as soon as you deviate too much, you are probably just reporting a price difference which is inflicted by the screen size. So try to find one of the screen sizes that we have over here. So that's 27 or 32 or 43, and nothing much bigger than that, nothing much smaller than that, and then put it in the correct position. Next item. Do we have questions?
No, Peter,
Nope.
we don't have any question.
Oh, okay. Next fun item, professional mixer. This is professional DJ equipment, and that's why it's called DJ something. We had a similar model in one of the previous surveys, but that was the DJM 900 NXS. So this is now the second generation of that one. That's how it looks like. I do not know how people can operate this. For me, it looks more complicated than operating a piano, but for a DJ, that might be very similar. One important thing is you should really pick professional equipment here. There are some generic mixers out there. We found a couple of them being priced in the Asia and Pacific region. Please try to find something which is actually used by professional. So I don't talk about somebody who does that for a hobby. So he earns some extra money by doing DJ shows. Should be something really doing that on a professional basis. And as with other equipment, generic mixers may be much cheaper than the Pioneer, but you pay for the name. That's the same for if you buy a Porsche. Well, there are other sports cars out there, but Porsche is expected to be quite expensive. Okay, so we are looking for this model. It has 4 channels and a microphone channel. The sampling rate is 24-bit at 96 kilohertz. And then we have number of line inputs, number of phono inputs, number of digital inputs, microphone inputs. We have a crossfader with that one, and this is equipment which has these connections. It should have, if you report something at the unspecified item position, should be similar to what we have over here. Sampling rate is important, and you should have a crossfader. Whether that's called Magvel or different, that doesn't matter too much, but it should have something like that. So this is typical equipment. You find that very easily at professional music stores. We have, for instance, one that serves all of Europe, ships to all of Europe, and is in fact used by people from all over Europe, which is a big German store, and there are other stores in the UK out there, and you will probably also find that locally. Next group of items would be something that Ernestina has already mentioned, I think. It was the analog digital combi oscilloscopes. She had reported the old name too, which was HAMEC, which was probably the reason why people didn't find it in the past. This one is by Rode and Schwarz, and that is why they are named R and S. I checked that, for instance, this morning in Germany, and tried to find this in an international website, pretending I was from Brazil, and I was taken to a website in Portuguese language, and where I could exactly find Rode and Schwarz equipment. I found something like RTB2, and then my Portuguese left me because it said something like, please contact the dealer or something like that. But if you go to the web page for that, you will probably find that. So Rode and Schwarz, or I think on the internet it was Rode-Schwarz, would be the website to use for that one. We have two different models, and over here you have product denominations. This consists of two parts, and this is only a base package. This is the combination of the RTB 2004. This is the basic device, and you need to have one bandwidth options. You can't just buy this one because you have to select which bandwidth you want to use with that, how accurate this or how quick this machine should be. If your importer still uses the old name, you may use also HAMEC as a search keyword to find this. Basically, right now it should be marketed as Rode and Schwarz, but it might also be HAMEC. So this one has 4 input channels and 16 digital input channels. So that's analog, that's digital. It's a combi scope, so it can do both digital and analog signals. It's something that should be put on the bench of a lab. So it's not a really good transportable unit. You can, of course, take it to a work site, but you would not use it as a device for mobile measurements normally. The bandwidth is to be better than 100 megahertz. The rise time for the wave is like 3.5 nanoseconds. And normally it gives an accuracy of 1 millivolt to 5 volt. Input impedance, this is mega ohm. You may find that also spelled out as OHM in some of the brochures. And basically that is what is important from this machine. As I said, you find that normally if you go to www.rode-schwarz.com, and then you will be offered your website. Major difference for the second oscilloscope, it only has 2 channels, the RTC 1000, and it's thus cheaper than the RTB 2004 with the option for one bandwidth, which is named RTB B241. Expected factor is around about 40%. And it's also way cheaper than the device priced in ICP 2017. There, the factor that I found was 0.55. Don't apply that too strictly. If it is somewhere around about a half, that's probably fine. So differences, as I said, bandwidth over here is exactly 100 megahertz, the rise time is not as good as it was for the other one, and it only has 2 channels. That's the important differences.
Peter?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we have a question from Simon Plummer. The question is, for the professional mixer, would it be okay to take the price for a brand outside of Pioneer, considering superiority of that brand?
Well, that depends. If you take that as, well, you would not price that at the Pioneer branded item position, of course. And if you want to report it at the counterpart generic item, then that would be okay, provided you have to keep in mind one thing. If we want to make comparisons, we need to identify countries who price the same item. So it would be a good idea to say, well, we would suggest something like this as an indicative item if we know that in advance. So if you find something superior to Pioneer, well, I do not know whether you find superior equipment to the Pioneer equipment in the market, but I'm not a DJ. So if Simon has something better, he could probably give us a link and we could use that as an indicative item if we have checked that and it's fine. So it's possible, but you would need to have somebody else pricing the same thing, or a very comparable thing. Do you need more clarification? Peter? No. Okay.
Yes, I think that you answered the question. Thank
Okay.
you.
So in any case, I would suggest to countries, if they have questions about specific indicative items, taking into account that you didn't have a pre-survey or something similar, it might be a good idea to send these suggestions very quickly to ECLAC so that they could compile a list, and we could probably try to check the list if it is not too big. That would be one option to do. So if you have specific items already in mind, you could give it a try and just send it to ECLAC. Okay, next item then. A blood pressure monitor. That's, well, not used by DJs, but probably by doctors. The brand that we picked here is Omron from Japan. And this is a different item than what we had in the 2017 survey, because that's not produced anymore. This one is the Omron Evolve HEM7600TE. That's the one that we need. It's an upper arm blood pressure monitor, and it is expected to be way cheaper than the HEM907 priced in the previous survey. The expected factor is something like 35%. That's what we typically found and have seen in Europe. It's quite standard equipment used by a doctor, or well, maybe used also by other people, but typical equipment nevertheless. And Omron is one of the biggest manufacturers. Okay, what can it do? It is for measurement in oscillometric way. It has a digital display. It does not require you to manually inflate or deflate the cuff. That is done by a small motor transporting the air. The measurement range is for the systolic value, from 40 to 260 millimeters quicksilver. I do not know whether you call that quicksilver column that we say in German or in English. It measures the pulse between 40 and 100 beats per minute. The accuracy is plus minus 3 millimeters, and the accuracy of the pulse rate is plus minus 5%. So the quality should be somewhere, if you want to find a counterpart generic item, should be somewhere in this area. It's operating with 4 AAA batteries of 1.5 volt each. You have an arm cuff for an adult and also an AC adapter for that one. I don't think blood pressure monitor needs additional explanations. Everybody, at least everybody in my age, has been subject to treatment with that. Okay, now we come to the digital projectors. Well, we have one from NEC, one from Japan. Sorry, one from NEC, one from Epson, both from Japan. The NEC is the P603X. The Epson is the Ebw39. These items typically are characterized by their brightness, by their resolution, and by the distance range they can service. The NEC is way more expensive than the model priced in 2017. That was a NEC V332X. Expected factor is somewhere between 2 and 3. We found in well, countries in the Asia and Pacific region found the NEC P604 instead of this one. That should not be priced here, as it has more features than the model we are looking for. But if this is common, the 604 is common, that could be a very good indicative item, because the differences are not extremely big, could thus be a good indicative item for the counterpart position. Okay, now we go to the specs. The resolution is XGA, or 1024 by 768, sorry. The contrast ratio is 20,000 to 1. The aspect ratio is 4:3. It has a brightness, as I said, that's important, 3,600 ANSI lumens. The projection system should be 3 primary color liquid crystal shutter projection. Well, you will probably find something like 3 colors or liquid crystal shutter or something if you have a different brand, but for the NEC you will find exactly this. Projection distance can be anywhere between a little bit less than a meter to 13.5 meters. And the typical thing that you also would like to know, but what is not necessary as a standard parameter, is the lamp life. Typically this lasts 4,000 projection hours if you work in the brightest mode, so not in the eco mode. And that is, there are some other parameters with that, but these are the most important ones. And again, you go to necdisplay.com to find this item normally. Second one is the Epson Ebw39. It has a different resolution, a different aspect ratio, and a different projection distance. And for that reason, it's expected to be way cheaper, factor about 0.55, but still more expensive than the model priced in ICP 2017 factor compared to that one. You may notice that the model name for that one is just a bit different, 32 instead of 39. The expected factor was about 1.3. So with this, we have a slightly different resolution. The contrast ratio is not as good as it has been for the other one. The ANSI lumens are similar. And as I said, 3 LCD is what you find for the Epson. It's a slightly different name, but the same technology. And the projection distance is 1.68 to 202 meters. Okay, so basically there's again one problem we have over here. The aspect ratio given in the metric column is something wrong. I don't know where that came from. The correct value is 16 to 10. So if you price one of these items, if you have contrast ratio 15,000 to 1 and not 20,000 to 1, I would put it here. If it is, and in both cases, round about 3,500 ANSI lumens, I would put it here. Otherwise, I would put it in the other position. Okay. Any questions on the projectors? Because that's typically something people are a bit puzzled about. Let's see.
For the moment, we don't have any question on this group of items.
So yeah, so if you find one of the indicative models that we have, or of these two models, that's fine. And please try to stick to the parameters as close as possible, especially resolution and contrast ratio. Okay, now we go to something which is used on construction sites again. It's two different digital theodolites, one from Leica in Switzerland and one from Topcon in Japan. It's two different sets. One is the Builder 109 set from Leica. The other one is the Topcon digital theodolite DT 209. This is how the set looks like. Quite a number of items, but they are all necessary. And as they are used roundabout construction site, they are in a quite sturdy case. One thing I should mention, because that was a question that arose during one of the workshops, the accuracy of the angle measurement, that's important. So we were asked about a Nikon machine or Nikon item, the NE100 as a counterpart unspecified item. And to give you an impression how much the different accuracy can inflict the price, we found a price of $1,730 for the NE100 with 10 angled seconds accuracy, and a price of almost double for the NE102 with 5 angled seconds. So the accuracy, in fact, the smaller the number, the better the accuracy. So you can measure differences of 5 angled seconds with that one, and with this one of 10 angled seconds. Angled seconds, that's if you divide a degree, but what construction people call a degree, or measuring people call a degree, divided by 60 to receive angle minutes, and then again divided by 60 again to get the angled seconds. So 10 angled seconds is really a very small angle, but this makes it more important to have the correct one. So the ones that we have over here are ones with 9 angled seconds. That's the 9 given over here for the Leica, and we will see that in the next slide. Okay, important and nice thing about Leica, Leica has unique product numbers which are valid across the world, I think. And so if you find the Leica 109 set with this product number, you have the correct item. One problem that skipped my attention when I first checked that is the accuracy. By mistake, the word inches is added after the angled seconds. So it's 9 angled seconds. The inches is just something that is in excess. It has a high resolution display. It has a laser plummet. We'll come to that later. It has a magnification of the telescope of 30-fold, and the field of view is like 1 degree and 21 angle minutes, which is the same as 1.5 Gon. Gon is a measurement that is, instead of a full circle having 360 degrees, they have 400 Gon for a full circle. I do not know the historical reason for that, but that's what it is. This is the complete standard package that we want to have. But as I said, if you have this, everything else is included. If you want to check for the additional things included in the set, you might also refer to the item related Acrobat document, the PDF one for this item. It will contain a full description of that. Different brand now, the second branded model is the Topcon. The Topcon is way cheaper than the Leica. Factor is about 2/3. The result for ICP 2017 in ECLAC was similar. So we had only, to be honest, we had only prices from few countries. I would think that these devices or the Nikon should be available all over the world. The problem is they might not all be available in every country, but one of the three, I think, should be available in your country. Again, product number is given for the set, which is 60214. We have 9 angle seconds. The magnification is a little bit less than for the Leica, 26 instead of 30. The field of view is 1 degree and 30 angle minutes. It is the standard package, and I think that is the parameters that are most important. If you have other items similar to that, please make sure this is the most important one. The accuracy of the angle measurement, because as you have seen, that might explain changes of factor 2 in the price.
Peter?
Yeah.
Excuse me, maybe we can stop here for today and continue tomorrow with this group of items because we are almost at 12:30.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Let me see, just one check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then we have one new item there that, yeah, probably better, yes.
Yes, because we have 4 minutes to end the session of today. Quisiera, disculpen, aquí. Quisiera agradecer a Peter por esta revisión tan exhaustiva sobre todo las especificaciones y también sobre su experiencia tanto en el ciclo anterior 2017 como también en el ciclo actual en las otras regiones donde él también está apoyando la compilación de esta encuesta. Entonces, detalles también como este factor diferenciador de precios esperado entre modelos es algo que nos va a ayudar mucho a validar la información previo a enviarla aquí a CEPAL y luego a la oficina global. También esto de las preguntas específicas sobre algunos ítems, enviarlas a CEPAL será muy importante porque vamos a poder tener una respuesta común para todos y decirles, digamos, como algo para mañana, digamos que en el horario que aparece en la agenda en español, aparece que termina a las 11:30 y no, termina a las 12:30 como todas las jornadas de esta semana. Y también decirles que, como está puesto en el chat, las presentaciones están todas disponibles en el sitio web que les pusimos ahí, lo que ciertamente ayuda bastante a seguir las presentaciones. De hecho, yo ahí es donde voy mirándolas para poder hacer un seguimiento más en profundidad de los temas en que estamos abordando, que no son nada fáciles, especialmente para personas no expertas, como puede ser mi caso. Así es que agradecerle a Peter por esta jornada. Ha sido de gran ayuda toda esta revisión que hemos hecho. Y bueno, si hay alguna otra consulta antes de cerrar la jornada, le doy la palabra. Si no, cerramos aquí y nos vemos mañana a las 10 a.m. hora de Chile. Parece que no veo ninguna cosa en el chat, ni ninguna... Aquí hay un agradecimiento a Peter. Así es que si no hay más consultas, cerramos aquí y nuevamente muchas gracias a todos por acompañarnos en la jornada de hoy. Hasta luego.